Hello, and thanks for checking out the video. Today I'm doing a circular walk. Well, when I say a circular walk, it's rather convoluted and wibbly wobbly, but the idea being I haven't got to backtrack on any paths that I've already been on. It starts and finishes in a beautiful little village which has some ancient history as well. The thing is, I haven't done any of these paths before, I don't think. So consequently, I'm planning on spending the night out, but looking at the OS map, there's not a lot of, well, hardly any woodland really, just a few odd, very small bits of woodland dotted here and there. So to cover all eventualities, I brought out the methylated spirit stove as well. It's against my rules really, because I like to come with the absolute minimum of stuff, but I've had to bring it as an extra because I possibly won't be able to have a twig fire, because I might not be able to disappear into a woodland of any kind really. But we'll see how it goes. It's turned out decidedly hot today. We've had a lot of rain this week, yesterday especially, so everything's returned to its usual damp self. But today the sun's come out really warm and it's making the humidity really rise. And yeah, there's no air. It's really humid at the moment. I'm not complaining about the weather because, this weather's giving fantastic views. In the very distance, the North Downs, and on the other side of me, the English Channel is quite clear as well. The rain we've had this week, is fantastic for the ground and the wildlife, the plants. We've really needed it. It's just that there's a pub in the village where this walk starts and finishes, and I hope the high humidity, doesn't tempt me in. Here's an interesting little earthworks. Seems to be a circular mound with a dip in the middle, and possibly a moat around the edge. And it's just to the south of some tumuli, some burial mounds, but I can't for the life of me spot them. I think the plough has, over the years, sort of flattened them off and made them indiscernible. But this feature here is very discernible. So what is it? Is it prehistoric like its neighbours there? But unfortunately not. Apparently this is the remains of a dew pond, which means it could have been made quite recently, possibly even in the last few hundred years. Up in these chalky hills where there's no water, I think the idea of a dew pond was a lined area which would trap water. I don't think it actually could trap the dew. I don't know why it's called a dew pond, but according to Google that's probably not what happened. But it had a large lined sort of catchment area, and would certainly catch every drop of rain going. Yeah, and then the livestock up here, well, you could farm livestock up here. Here's another dew pond, still functional in a way. 3/4 of a mile west of the other dew pond, I spotted this one on the OS map, and it's still got water in it, so the liner is probably still reasonably intact. And you can see it's quite an important area for water collection and you know, an important source of water for the farmers. Or to have water in this particular area, it must be quite important. Or it certainly used to be before it was piped everywhere, I guess. Yeah, this was about 3/4 of a mile out of the way. So, not the end of the world, but that was 3/4 of a mile coming away from the pub, which isn't so good. We've dropped down into the valley now. It's a little bit cooler down here. There's a bit of a breeze. We're going towards the river. We're going to connect up with the river and follow it along back towards the little village where I started this morning. This is all floodplain because we're right beside the river here. We're heading up now, hopefully up into the village again. But according to the OS map, there's quite a steep feature going up from the river to what was an old Saxon fort, where the village was built upon actually. Kingfisher, wow. Don't mind saying I'm sweating bullets. This is the feature marked on the OS map. It's a set of steps up from the river to what was originally the fort. These steps up this steep embankment to the fort obviously formed part of the defence of the fort. But then, of course, as the years went by, became an ideal route for smugglers who could get their contraband up the English Channel, up the river and inland to nice little villages like this, and no one would be the wiser. This field of cows appears to be where the Saxon fort was, according to my map, or what remains of it. It's hard to see any. In defence of what, though? In defence of Vikings, apparently. Like the smugglers after them, they could be up the English Channel and up the river, and if they could get up that steep slope and the defences of the fort, they'd have your maidens and your money, I'm sure, just as soon as you can say pillage. Here's the pub. I'm going to avoid this. I completed the circular walk that I wanted to do, but after replenishing my fluids at the churchyard and other places. I'm going to head back out into the hills a little bit because I did spot one or two potential wild camps, you know. A little bit of woodland in amongst lots of arable. Lots of arable which is finished up really. All these fields, the wheat has been harvested. So I'm hoping around here it's going to be a quiet night. It's all beech and quite regimented, so this has been planted some years ago. I'm not sure why really, between four arable fields really. Game bird feeder. I guess this little plantation was planted to provide shelter and growing conditions for the game around here. I have found a couple of shotgun cartridges in the little woodland, so I suspect that's what this was for. I'm going to set up in the woods there, but I'm gagging for a cup of tea, and I just fancy being out in the open here with the views. Oh, I really needed that cup of tea, and I can't think of a nicer place to have it really. You know, the vista is beautiful. Yeah, I'm making a point of not damaging any of these plants here. There seems to be a band of them grown around this field, you know, and it could be some kind of companion planting system they're trying out, or something in the way of conservation, you know. Now I'd normally do a no-knot here, which has a lot of wrapping turns around the trunk like this, but because this is a good 5 or 6 metres, I just haven't got the line. So I'm going to rely on a good old-fashioned knot called the round turn and 2 half hitches, like this. But that might, after a damp night, which it's going to be slightly damp tonight, that could be a bit of a bugger to undo in the morning. That's why a no knot's much better. It allows you to release it when it's been under tension all night long. The round turn and 2 half hitches is a great knot, but like a lot of knots, can be a little bit, when it's been under tension in natural fibre lines and they swell up, can be a little bit problematical to undo sometimes. But we'll see how we get on in the morning. Tonight it's vegetables and quinoa, but I'm been lugging around this 300 plus grams of methylated spirits and Trangia stove, so I'm going to cook it on the meth stove tonight. You know, it seems crazy I've been carrying it around not to use it. And also there's been a flurry of activity around here. Lots of the lanes here which for agricultural traffic have been very busy, you know, and I can hear dogs in the distance and even voices. You know, it seems that everyone's out tonight, so I'd rather not you know, light a twig stove or a twig fire. So it's the usual thing. The dried vegetables, which is mushrooms, French beans, peas, goes into the pot first, and the quinoa is all mixed through it. And we'll cover that with water and we'll get that on the go and cook that first. While that's going, may as well get the fresh veg prepped up. In fact, I might do a little bit of hay box cookery, and when that's boiled and then simmered for a while, wrap it all up in something insulating, and it will continue to cook. In that way, saves a bit of fuel. Got some celery, which has been bounced about the pack a little bit, so it's not looking the best. But I always think celery adds a little bit of a natural saltiness, so it's almost like a natural flavour enhancer. And some French beans from the garden. I just grabbed a handful. Yeah, I think even the French beans are feeling it after a hot day in the pack. Yeah, we'll just finish that off in the hay box, purely just to save on fuel. That'll do. Some oil. Just beginning to soften down a bit. We can add in some garlic. Nice and chunky. Been fried down and also steamed, you know, in their own moisture. yeah, I think we can add some seasoning. And now we can decant the quinoa, which is of course also got the rehydrated vegetables, the mushrooms, the peas, French beans, and we just waz them in there and give it a minute or so just to heat it all through. Mix it all up together. Yeah, that was a good night. It wasn't that cold. I think it was predicted to go around to sort of down to the low teens. Yeah, quite comfortable. For some reason I didn't sleep too well for a while. I fancied a cup of tea, and at 1 o'clock in the morning I found myself making a cup of tea, you know, which was a bit daft, but I don't know what happened there. But yeah, it was a good night. So I'm just going to get this lot packed away and head on out.